Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Abe with MysticGenmara.com, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And today I would like to offer, it's not an unboxing because I've had this deck for a minute, but we're going to call this a review because this particular deck is a little bit fun and it's a different vantage point. And I like the way it's packaged, so I usually keep my boxes. But it's the Gods and Titans by Stacey DeMarco, and it's kind of a fun deck. Most of your Oracle card decks, and even the tarot is a good one for finding balance between the masculine and the feminine because that's how it was developed in the first place. But a lot of your Oracle decks are very heavy feminine and very light on the masculine. There's a few of them out there that are more masculine, but not many. At least not I've seen. If if there are, drop suggestions. I would love to see more of them because I just haven't found them yet. But this one is nice because it goes through a whole list of different gods and titans. What is there, 50 some cards? Nope, 38 cards. And each card is a different divinity, masculine divinity, and it gives you a key word that is focused on what that type of deity can do. So like, we'll look at this one here. Maui, it's the energy of discovery. And so this is a way you can just read those and go off of that energy. There's Hades, which is pretty cool with his death energy. But you can also look in the book because the way they have, that's interesting, the book opened right to Maui. And then I flipped it. It's interesting because of how she does it. It goes through, feel eager, again, for discovery and adventure. Curiosity may help you break barriers and solve problems. So that's like a key aspect. Then there is a full 2 pages, generally, sometimes 3, of what the deity or titan of that person was. For example, with Maui, there's a whole description of across the Polynesia from New Zealand to Hawaii, we hear stories about the hero. And although the tales differ from island to island and region to region, his exploits have given man fire, invented the kite, and fished up a whole island for human to live on. And it goes through what his skills are, some of his personality quirks, which is fun because you see some of these deities as very stern and very solemn, and it's like, but when they're not in their official capacity, they actually have a sense of humor, or they might come to you when they're first introducing themselves and crack a joke. You know, it's things like that where you don't quite expect that, but it is true. I've worked with a couple of different energies like that, and you read about them and they're very stern, very structured, and they will be. Do not get me wrong, they will still be in that position, but they also have a different side to them. All of them do. So it's a matter of understanding the full aspect of that divinity. Then it goes into the shadow aspect, as I was saying. And like for this gentleman here, he's a trickster and often makes his discoveries or gets prizes through stealing or outmaneuvering those in the way. Well, that's not pleasant, but he is a trickster, so you can also associate this energy with Loki. And its symbols is the carved fishhook, a canoe, mud hen, kites, and fire, which if you watched Moana, this is kind of where that particular character came into play. For him, there is actually I just lost the word, invocation. If you wanted to work with him in an altar aspect, like if you had a sea altar or an island altar, those are different energies you can work with. But there's ones like for Dionysus and the ecstasy of life and what the overabundance of those things can be. There is energies for like Helios, which is the cycles of life. Helios and Apollo are similar, not the same. Thor, everyone's favorite, with action, but it also is protection. It's also defense. There's a lot of energy that goes with Thor. But I'm trying to find one. Oh, Hermes. Like Anubis. This is a good one we can take a peek in the book on too. Anubis is specifically protection. Most people see Anubis as strictly the god of the underworld, or at least the guide of the underworld. But that's not always the fulfillment of everything that Anubis will do. So it's grief and suffering are natural parts of life. Know that you are loved and protected at this time and all times. Anubis gets an interesting rap because of his position. But that doesn't mean he's evil, it just means he has to deal with the darkness so much that it's kind of become part of who he is. And so it's like when you go down into the womb-like environment of the tombs in Egypt, the gods still seem to live and breathe. which is, I've heard that from a lot of people. I want to go one day, but the people that I know of went to Egypt, the vibe is just different there. Um, Anubis might look fearsome, but it's nothing. That's not always the truth. Jackals move amongst graveyards in real life, but this god takes care of the tender new souls who have passed into the next world. After preparing them by guiding the embalmer's hands, Anubis travels with the dead to have their souls weighed by Mat, the goddess of balance and law, and basically helps them figure out where they're going after she weighs their scales. If it's good, he helps them into the next door. If it's bad, it's time to go into the other side. But he's there as a guide and kind of a companion, which is refreshing, really, because when you die, it's not going alone. Someone like Anubis is there to guide us. Doesn't have to, and he looks a little fearsome, but really, if I was to die, I'd want someone there with me. And if they looked a little more aggressive, that means they would actually protect the soul as it's going along. There's the shadow aspect of Anubis, and it talks about where we go. It's inevitable. Death is inevitable. It's just part of life. It's how we have to go. And it's saying that this could also symbolize relationships dying. Sometimes it's a job that has to die, like things are just becoming toxic, time to cut that off and move on. But it's also that fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown takes away the mystery. The mystery part of the unknown is what makes it fun. When we fear that, as in terrified of it, that takes the mystery out and then replaces it with anxiety, depression, things like that. And that's where Anubis energy outside of death can actually be really super helpful. There's the symbols of the jackal head, the flail, and the ankh, and then, of course, the invocation as well. If you're looking for a deck that is going to give you a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit more focused on the male side of things, this is a good option. I mean, you even have the green man in here, which is a symbol of abundance. And it gives you brief history. Definitely not a full history. Oh, well, there's this guy too. We talked about him on a Myth and Tarot, I believe it was. Typhon, which is anger and rage. And Typhon, his history and his story is very much about anger and rage. There's no chill with that dude. But these are some of the energies that you can look at with this deck. It's a fun deck to work with. It does challenge some things. There's parts of it where, especially if you've read a lot into the ancient lore, some of it's like, well, yeah, that's one part of them, but that's not the full thing. But that's why it's an introduction. It's not a full comprehensive aspect of these deities. You have Poseidon, god of the sea. It's a introduction to them. And it's also a way to kind of tap into the energy of what it means when we talk about the divine masculine. It's not one thing. Neither is the divine feminine. It's not just, oh, it's passive. Okay, that's divine feminine. Yes, that's one aspect. And the divine masculine, what's aggressive? It's projective, actually, but that's one aspect. When you look at the deck through this set, you'll find that there's a lot more nuance to what that means. And I feel like, personally, when we look at a lot of the oracle decks out there, there's a little bit of an imbalance towards the feminine, which is fine. More women read cards because it's more intuitive. But I feel like it's a good idea to have the balance as well, and this is a good deck for that. As I usually do when we do an unboxing, except for this is more of a review, we'll go ahead and just pull a couple cards and see how you guys feel about it. And when I usually use this deck, what I'll do is I will pull one personally, or if someone requests it in a reading, I will pull one aspect of it, and then if they're looking for the balance aspect, I'll pull like a goddess of the moon, which is also Stacey DeMarco's. We'll look at both sides of the energies, so we see what the masculine's doing, what the feminine's doing. For me personally, I don't usually read as a full set with just this deck, because they're archetypes. They're massive. It's like reading just from the major arcana. You can do that, but there's going to be a lot of energy coming forward with that. So it's one of those that it's sometimes a little bit easier to less is more. But she talks about this as a little bit in here too, because it's like calling your pantheon, so you can sort out just the pantheons you want to work with and shuffle from that. There's one card divination, which is pretty basic. You're just looking for information. The twins, which is pulling two cards, it's a way to get the crux of the matter. It requires this spread empowers you to take action. Shut your eyes, think about your situation, pull 2 cards. Card number 1 is the obstacle that you're dealing with. So that's the biggest challenge. And 2 is your action. What is it you're going to do next? And that's what we're going to do as a test run here. Then there's the full sun. There's the climbing the mountain ones. She has a 7-card divine masculine spread right here, which is, again, they're fun to do because it gives you a different aspect of what's going on. Then there's the Odin's spread, which is a 9-card spread, and then you get into your cards. So there's ways to look at these cards from a very broad perspective. My personal opinion, and I have this with a couple of decks that I have, is these are ones that you pull 1 or 2 cards to enhance or understand a reading, or to get a general vibe at the beginning of a reading, because when we look at this, it's showing you big energy that's coming in. This is kind of transitional, life-changing stuff. Doesn't have to be, but there's certain decks that you just start to getting a vibe for, and that's how this one comes to me. Is we're not looking to Gods and Titans to do a Celtic cross spread. That would just be a lot of chaos. But I am looking at them for, let's clarify this. Or we're starting off this reading, what deity do we want to work with, or what energy is coming in? And that's where you'd pull a masculine card and a feminine card, like one from this one and the Goddess of the Moon or something. So your test run here, your challenge, the main obstacle, is the energy of Hypnos, which is the energy of sleep. Let's hop over here and see where we at, what we got going on. And Hypnos, which is kind of a creepy looking card, it's being aware of and spiritually awake is vital to developing our highest potential. Allow full rest, which is vital to self-care. Everyone's going to sleep a little bit different, but this energy is saying don't neglect self-care, don't neglect the important aspects of life. Hypnos is the Greek god of sleep. He was born from the energy of Nyx, which is the Dark Mother. Artists picture him hand in hand with his twin brother, Thanatos, which is one of the death deities. Often the brother shadow each other in their work. So death and sleep. Sleep is called the little death. One of the other, there's a lot of terms for sleep, but that's one of them. And then you kind of go through this, how he was one to help bring about the dreams into the physical, helps kind of the origin of Sandman type energy here. But the shadow side, if he isn't granting you his gift of rest and uninterrupted sleep, it will have substantial effects on your body and mind. So if you're a really bad insomniac, or you're only sleeping a couple hours a night, like some of us do, there could be something that you're not acknowledging. There could be something you're not paying attention to. And when this is in the obstacle or challenge side, that's what we're getting here, is either being too exhausted and sleeping all the time, which is not healthy, or not sleeping enough. And so when we look at the challenge, we look at the shadow aspect, because that gives you the idea of what's happening. Symbols are feathers on the head and shoulders, the energy of the poppy, inverted torches, and branches that are dripping with water. That's the symbols that are associated with Hypnos. So if you're in your dream and you're seeing these things, could be that he's coming forward. And there's an invocation to help you sleep, and she goes through the process of how to breathe and how to do this, and then you start through the process. And if you're using the cards as like a weekly affirmation, pulling to see who's coming in to be beneficial, you can set the card on your altar. These are fairly good sized cards. I want to say they're like 5-6 inches. So they're a good size as far as that goes, so you can actually like set them up and you can meditate and kind of get to know the deities that are associated as well. Your second card would be your actions to take, which is Helios. Let's go back a couple pages here. There you are. And so this is what the course of action for you would be if Hypnos is making you sleep too much or not enough. It is cycles, knowing that personal patterns, positive or negative, may be playing out in your life. Plug into the cycles of nature for renewal and vitality. Helios is is the Greek titan of the sun, so he's pre-Apollo. Resplendent in a golden armor and a spectacular aura of light crowning his head. Helios drives his solar chariot around the sky each day. For his four steeds, Pyros, Aeos, Aethon, and Phlegion, draw his chariot racing in circular motions around the earth. So you're basically trying to, if you're having issues with sleep, time to reset, time to get back into the cycles of life, time to reconnect with nature, because the natural order, when you really are in that vibe, will reset you. And it's amazingly quick how fast that can happen. When I used to work at the job I had before, I was outdoors a lot. The beauty of that was you connect into nature. You know when it's going to rain 2 days before it's going to hit. You don't even have to watch the weather because you're feeling it in nature. You know when the snow's going to come. You're watching the animals, you're feeling the air, you're touching the ground itself. You can notice the shift. And that's what this energy is saying, is if you're having problems with sleep, too much, not enough, inconsistent, not restful, then your next step would be to set yourself up for success by getting tapped back into the cycles of life. So on the shadow side of Helios, which is not necessary because we're looking at the outcome, not the problem, would be, where do we go? Once the son of Helios tried to drive his father's chariot without permission, so time became unnatural. He set the world on fire and fell from the sky because of it. So basically, if we ignore the natural cycles of the earth, we are going to start dealing with consequences within our own lives. Like if you're not staying grounded and you're not going out and breathing the air, letting the sun on your face, things like that, it can actually start to affect us physically, but also mentally as well. And that's the energy that's coming up with this. You can look at the symbols of things to carry with you through the day to remind you of your cycles. Radiant glow, the Aureola, which is the sun's halo. The golden bow, a chariot with solar horses. That just sounds cool. And then there's an invocation as well. And with Helios, you would want to do the invocation first thing in the morning as the sun is rising, and then just before the sun starts to set, like the sun's up here horizon, you'd start it just before the sun touches the horizon. That way you can get tapped back into that cycle. And the other thing is when you are tapping into those cycles, you want to remember natural lighting is a huge part of Helios, which would be being out in the sun during the day, making sure you see the sun from your office, getting up on your lunch break, going outside, things like that, so your brain's like, oh, it's daytime, we have to be awake. And then at night, dim the lights. If you can find incandescent, that's the best option, or get warm lighting that is more neutral. Stay away from the bright whites and all that nonsense at night, because it's going to stimulate your brain to stay awake longer, and that goes against the cycle of your body and of nature. And so if you were to pull these cards, Hypnos is your challenge, sleep issues. But Helios is saying, use the sun and the cycles of nature to return to a healthy state. So when you look at it from that perspective, you can still get a lot of good information out of these cards, even if you're doing it that way. And I highly recommend using references in the books if you're using them for yourself, especially as like a meditation practice, because this is a way to reconnect with what the meaning of the card is. It also helps you get into a deeper understanding of the different phases of divine masculine through history, which is good so that we know kind of what that source of all this stuff is. And then you also get to have the messages that come through. And who knows, by working with these cards, you may find that one really strongly resonates more so than another, and you may have discovered a patron deity through that, which is a lot of fun to do as well. So with that, I will let you guys go. If you've used this deck before, please let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on it. I personally highly recommend this deck, especially if you don't have a masculine specific deck. This is a good way to bring a little balance into life as well, and it gives you a little more insight into kind of the more masculine side of existence too. And it's not like it's a big philosophical thing, it's just a little introduction. So with that, I will let you go. Have a great rest of your week. Like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things, and I will see you in the next video.